This is the Vivo X70 Pro Plus, and I think we finally reached a stage where I can say it is though I'm not making a review camera with some phone. This is a sponsored video, but this X70 Pro Plus is just a seriously unique and interesting, so I'm not making a review phone. So I want to show you my top 10 coolest things about it. And number 10 is actually the unboxing experience. Because in a year where most companies are chunkier packaged than most, and I think this company is ramping, you'll notice immediately that it is a chunkier package than most. And inside you can see a glossy strip on the right, you've got this photography read phones, a defined text, and more curiously, this ridiculously huge in the middle. That would be the phone. And then below that you get a 6-watt fast charger, a pair of pretty nice hard-backed but soft to the touch case, SIM ejector tool, and a USB-C cable. Okay, within 2 minutes of holding this phone, I already knew what number 9 was going to be. This feels... For starters, I've got no idea what they've coated it with, but this much I've ever seen on a phone. Like, black is usually the first color to attract fingerprints, right? This thing is not just resistant, but no idea what. You can't make it dirty, even if you... Secondly, the buttons. Most phones have these really clicky feeling buttons, and I actually didn't realize that I'd like them until I used these. They're still tactile, but it's almost like there's a layer of cushioning which makes...
And then the last thing is that this is incredibly well...
Or sometimes both the curve on the back and the screen. Vivo's actually built this phone such that
Först ut är...
whilst also making the seam between also follow that same arc. Or in other words, a completely continuous
review
all the way around. The only thing that I would say is that, and then pivot to the cameras so that they're horizontal. Because as it stands, your fingers can overlap with this module, and... Number 8 though, right off the bat, this might just be the most powerful phone on the market. It comes with a Snapdragon 8, the fastest chip available, 6 gigs of the fastest UFS 3.1 storage, and 12 gigabytes of the fastest LP RAM, all on the model. Plus, an interesting feature called RAM, which allows the phone to use 4 gigabytes of its normal memory as RAM if the phone ever runs out of. If you're into benchmarks, it is hitting over 50 points. But the reason that I haven't put this power further up on the list is that, fast as it is, this isn't a fundamentally different spec sheet to other top-end flagships. Also, number 1 on this list is kind of crazy. But where it does start to diverge
is the customization features
of the peculiarly named untouched curve. It was already one of Vivo's stronger features on their last phone. With the previous software, you could pick everything from to the... But you can now delve even further, being able to also adjust things like how you want apps to... and how you want your home screen to appear when you exit phone. It's stuff that you don't even think to ask for, but when it's there, it's just yet another way to make your phone exit. And if you are enjoying this video, then a sub to the channel would be... So, we're not short of fantastic displays on flagship phones nowadays, but this screen is quite possibly the most jacked panel you've seen in your entire life. Listen to this. It is a 6.8-inch LED HD display with a 1 GHz refresh rate. Okay, that's all the expected stuff. But then also full support for bit color, or over different shades, with the LTO technology, which allows the refresh rate to not just be really high, but also to go as low as once to save battery anytime you're looking at something still. And this is one of the first screens to be made with material, which enables reduced brightness and high power consumption by a further 25%. You would need a really good eye though to discern the difference versus other high-end flagships. Alright, number 5. I think it's time to talk about the elephant in the room. It's pretty clear from the way this thing looks that the primary selling point here is the... And to give them credit, there is quite a lot of stuff that they can do that you probably haven't seen before. Even this shot right here is taken on the phone. So, the X70 Pro Plus takes everything from Vivo's last flagship, the large sensor and wide aperture for lots of natural background blur, really like quite a lot of background blur, the intense levels of dynamic range, which probably aren't for everyone, but I'm a fan, advanced focus modes like eye tracking, long range zoom, and the ability to refocus portrait mode shots after you've taken them. A lot of stuff. However, this time around, they swapped out the main camera's plastic lens, which is what most smartphones tend to use, for a high transmittance. They're saying that it'll mean purer images. And while it's pretty tough for me to conclusively say that this is what's making all the difference, I love the look of it, and I can say that photos do look better. Now, the other camera facet that Vivo loves talking about is their partnership with the imaging company how they use Zeiss's T-Star glass coatings to reduce reflections from bright lights, or how they've created a special portrait mode called Biotar that mimics the rotational bokeh of Zeiss's iconic Biotar lens. Well, with the X70 Pro Plus, they've gone a bit crazy with this. There's 3 new Zeiss-inspired modes. One's called Distagon, inspired by a Zeiss lens known as Hollywood Distagon, because of how much it used to be used in Hollywood. There's Planar, inspired by a lens that's over a year old, believe it or not. And this one's meant to be the natural lens, a kind of interpretation of how our eyes see the world. And then Sonar, which delivers what they call creamy bokeh, which sounds kind of gross, but it's actually just referring to the smoothness of the background behind you. Less about bokeh specifically, more about just separation. They've then got a whole bunch of non-Zeiss portrait modes, and my favorite, which first uses the flash to take a bright photo of the person's face, and then it tells you to shake the phone so that it can use the flashing lights around the subject to create this vibe of the ultimate messy night out. I don't know whose idea this feature was, it's very nutty, but have I had fun with it? Yeah. And Vivo has now also added the option to use Zeiss's natural color science in the camera. But to be really honest, I am struggling to tell the difference. Its normal camera colors are nice though. It's not going for raw realism, but I like its style. But here's something that I've never seen a phone do. So you might know that the company's last flagship already had... You get all that here too, but this time around, as one of their super stabilization options, they've also added the ability to level horizon. Or in other words, it won't even matter if you rotate the phone 3 degrees, it can still capture orientation locked, but stabilized footage. That said, slightly heartbroken by the fact that this mode is capped at 2p. Oh, also though, side perk of having one of the best ultra-wide cameras is that this also doubles as one of the best macro cameras when you bring it close to subjects. Okay, number 2. This is where things get kind of special. Vivo has actually built their chip. It sits inside this phone, completely separate to the main phone, to specialize in imaging tasks. It does things like reduce noise when you're shooting in the dark, brightens images, reduces blur, etc. And because it's literally made for this one purpose only, it's apparently quite efficient at doing so. Again, a pretty hard one for me to test, but Vivo says that depending on what exactly it is that you're doing with your camera, having this piece of hardware to run these algorithms can reduce power consumption by up to 2% compared to if software was doing the same thing, whilst creating a better output. And that brings me to number 1, which is obviously everything about this phone. The wide aperture, the large sensor size, full glass lens, T-Star coating, V1 chips, software modes are all implicitly created around shooting in the dark. You might have seen this tweet I made a week ago that said I'd just started using a phone that took the best photos I've ever seen. That was this. So what actually happened was, literally seconds after that unboxing, I turned this phone on, I skipped the entire setup, ignored every menu, went straight to the camera and legged it outside to find out if this was as good as Vivo was saying it was. And it is. I mean, daytime shots nowadays are more about preference than proficiency, but at night it takes landscapes like this, moonshots that look like this, and portraits with almost no light that look like this. I had the iPhone 13 Pro Max with me at the same time, so I just started snapping side by side after side by side. And first of all, the difference in brightness is ridiculous. Now I'm definitely in the camp of brighter for the sake of being brighter is no good in a night mode shot. But this is brighter because it's actually capturing more information. have a little look at the difference in skies in this photo. So then I was like, okay, let's try the ultra-wide cameras. And remember, this is against the 13 Pro Max. This is with all the upgraded sensors and lenses that they've used. The difference is literally night and day. I also tried video. So with this new V1 chip, the X70 Pro Plus can also do something called Super Night Video. It feels like a feature that is nearly exceptional, like it's almost bringing the brightening power of night mode photos to video. But in motion, it breaks down a bit. It's not as smooth or as refined as it needs to be. But then I turned the phones up and tried taking a shot of the sky. And I'll show you what I took. This is the iPhone. This is the Vivo. This is the iPhone. This is the Vivo. This is the iPhone. This is the Vivo. You probably get the idea. There's also different styles of night mode, varying vastly in quality. Some of them look like you've just dipped your finger in butter and rubbed it over the lens. Others add layers of character.
But hopefully you caught my drift there. The Vivo X70 Pro Plus, this will be the most fun I've ever had with a phone. Do consider subscribing if you enjoyed. My name is Aaron, this is MrWhosTheBoss. See you in the next one.